Why EV tariffs won't stop Chinese cars. Have you ever thought about why taxes on electric vehicles might not be enough to stop the flow of Chinese cars into international markets? In this film, we go into great detail about the fascinating workings of the auto industry and look at how strong and creative Chinese manufacturers are. Could these taxes just be a small hitch in China's big plans for electric vehicles? Stay with us to find out the surprising reasons why taxes might not be the big deal that some people think they are. It should not come as a surprise that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are competing with one another in their efforts to prohibit electric autos designed in China from entering the United States. They are doing everything they can to outdo one another. When it comes to the voting process in critical swing industrial states, which both candidates for the presidency of the United States of America need to win in November, this performs the function of a safety belt. In spite of Trump's normally harsh rhetoric and Biden's decision to increase electric vehicle tariffs to 100%, China's global dominance will not be greatly damaged due to these developments. Already fairly small, the market for electric vehicles exported from China is continuing to shrink, and this trend is expected to continue. According to an economic analysis that was published this week by the National Australia Bank, the value of Chinese electric vehicle sales to Australia is already 7 times higher than such sales to other countries, such as the United States. Given the eagerness of both parties to prevent any attempt by China to circumvent these tariffs by manufacturing in Mexico or Canada, there is a low probability that this equation will change significantly. Given its tight link with the automobile market in the United States, the Trudeau administration is contemplating the extent to which it should elevate its tariffs on electric vehicles from 6% to 8%. It is more likely that the possibility of additional tariffs in Europe will cause irreparable harm to the expansion of electric vehicles (EVs) from China into Western countries, even if any new tariffs that are imposed in Europe will be of a considerably smaller magnitude. At the moment, the European Union imposes a duty of 10% on electric vehicle imports from China. The anti-subsidy review of the electric vehicle industry is scheduled to be completed in July and is anticipated to suggest higher rates. The review was requested by the European Commission. The exact amount of the increase is still unknown. German automakers, in particular, are concerned about the possibility of Chinese reprisal causing damage to their own diminishing but still lucrative exports into China. On the other hand, preventing China from producing electric vehicles would be detrimental to Europe's efforts to reduce emissions. Mercedes-Benz, for instance, had intended to begin producing all-electric vehicles in Europe by the end of the decade. Nevertheless, the company will now continue to produce automobiles powered by internal combustion engines and hybrid engines well into the 2030s. The bigger picture is that electric vehicle sales in China will continue to be largely unchallenged in the majority of Asian countries and other regions, including in the country's home market. In China, electric vehicles accounted for 38% of the country's total domestic car sales, as reported by the International Energy Agency. China was responsible for the sale of 59% of the 13.8 million electric vehicles that were sold in 2017. More than 2/3 of those were created in China by Chinese manufacturers. The remaining ones were produced in China through joint ventures with automobile manufacturers such as Tesla, in addition to the decreasing percentage of other imports that were primarily from Europe. As a result of the downturn in spending by Chinese consumers, the domestic market is also not as robust as an international market. However, it is still a very vast and growing base that dwarfs the sudden slowdown of production plans for electric vehicles that manufacturers in the United States and Europe have been making in the past. China's BYD, Li Auto, and SAIC are operating at 80% of their fast-expanding capacity, in contrast to Ford Motors' estimate of multi-billion-dollar losses on electric vehicles, for example. More specifically, it is the smaller, more recent entrants or Chinese makers of automobiles powered by internal combustion engines that are having a difficult time making a profit and seeing decreased sales. The generous provision of subsidies. Similar to the processing of rare earths and electric vehicle batteries, this expansion in electric vehicle capability is a reflection of Beijing's long-term strategies that have been enacted to expand the sector over the course of decades. EV manufacturers in China started receiving large subsidies from the state at least 15 years ago, when the state recognized them as an important future industry. This was well before anyone in the United States came up with the idea of the Inflation Reduction Act. Even China's excess manufacturing capacity, which drives down costs around the world, provides Beijing with the benefit of preventing other businesses that are facing more urgent commercial constraints from attempting to catch up and compete with China. This helps to explain why Chinese firms dominate the worldwide supply of electric vehicle batteries, which are available at lower prices and of an increasingly higher quality. Additionally, Chinese companies are able to keep control over a significant portion of the processing of the minerals that are used in the production of these batteries. Because of the history of this situation, governments all over the world, including the government of Australia, are currently investing in their own forms of protectionism and subsidies. This is the basis for their actions. This trend has received a considerable boost as a result of the Western world's tardy awareness of the relevance of supply chains emanating from nations other than China. A substantial amount of the minerals, metals, and other materials are necessary for the transition to a new energy source, as well as for the development of advanced technology for military and other purposes. This is the case for a number of reasons. For instance, the United States is increasing the taxes that it levies on lithium-ion batteries and battery parts that are manufactured in China from 7.5% to 25%. In addition to the numerous limitations and levies that have been imposed on Chinese semiconductors, there is an additional measure that has been implemented. The tariffs on critical minerals and permanent magnets are going to be raised to 25%, which is a significant increase from their current 0%. Economics that is perverse. In addition to this is before Donald Trump gets the chance to increase the amount of his current wager. In spite of the fact that it does not own a sizable domestic market or its own vehicle sector, Australia is confronted with a distinct collection of choices in comparison to either the United States or Europe. The provision of $1 billion for the production of solar panels looks to be particularly perverse economics due to the fact that this is the case. On the other hand, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development warns that Australia is very susceptible to the risks that could be brought about by a significant decrease in international trade. To a certain part, this is owing to the fact that it is striving to strike a delicate balance in the process of creating its critical minerals processing industries while simultaneously being primarily dependent on Chinese investment and expertise. This is the reason why it is experiencing this situation. This will result in intensive lobbying over the amount of Chinese investment that will prevent projects from being eligible for the production tax credits granted by the government beginning in 2027 for the refining and processing of critical minerals. This will take place over the course of the next several months. There are some individuals who are involved in the industry who believe that Australia will continue to stick to the limit of a maximum 25% that is imposed by the United States in order to maintain its eligibility for financial incentives. They argue that it would be detrimental to dependable Chinese partners and projects that have higher levels of co-investment but do not have majority Chinese control. Those who disagree with this position think that it would be detrimental to these initiatives. Additionally, American battery makers and automotive manufacturers that are looking for tax breaks and incentives in the United States would not be able to supply Australian lithium and nickel producers to transfer their products to China for processing. This would be the case if the items were sent to China. If you found this insight intriguing and want to stay updated with the latest in the automotive world, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell icon. Join our community for more deep dives into industry trends, expert analyses, and fascinating content. Subscribe now and never miss out.